Welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here today with video 9 in the series of building the Beanery, so stay tuned. Well, I guess we're getting close to the holidays at this point. Merry Christmas. My little Christmas tree. I just set these on the table and noticed they were kind of in that shape. So anyway, hope everybody is ready for a really good holiday season. Spend time with your families. Like in my last video, don't spend all your time in a dark room somewhere playing with trains. Family is very important. My family is very important to me. So I am going to spend some time with my family during this holiday season. God has blessed me with a good family. They've done a lot for me over the years and vice versa. So anyway, nostalgia aside, we're going to continue on with the Beanery build. I think in this episode what we're going to concentrate on is the cornice work and maybe some of the roof work in the tower area, as well as get the roof laid out for that first building that we did the cornice work on in the last show as well. And we'll see how time works out with the video and how far into all that we get. But there's some unique situations with the cornice work in a tower, and I kind of got a basic start on it to figure out what exactly and how I wanted to do all those little supports that you see around the tower up there. So I think I've got that figured out, and we're going to continue on and work on that build some more. Here we go. So I've got two shots that show the roof line on the first end of the building that we put together. This doesn't show it really well, but where the roof comes up and meets underneath that window, it creates a ridge line in the roof which comes out the majority of the building, and then this shot kind of shows the angle. The ridge line only comes out 2/3 or so of the way of the building, and then this end roof comes up to meet that ridge line as an end piece. There's actually three sides to the roof that comes up. And you can see there's not much of a pitch on this, but there is a very slight pitch, and it comes up to meet right actually on the stone at the bottom of the window there. So we're going to go ahead and lay out that wall, roof line and get those pieces cut out and in place. We're going to try to make them removable so we can get in and add rooms and stuff to the possibly the building later on, do some lighting or things like that. So we'll get started on that. Now I'm just showing once again here that plastic from a big sign that I cut out. I use this plastic for a lot of different stuff. I'm just coming back and marking the height of all of the pieces that I want to use for a frame that sits down inside the wall that the roof attaches to. And I'm going to cut out all these frame pieces. I want them removable so that they'll slide in and out. I want to be able to take the roof off like we mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to cut a whole bunch of these pieces. So I just, using a new life blade once again, coming back and scoring all this plastic once I've marked it all to the same heights, and just cutting off bunches of strips. You can see here I've clamped on a piece of wood where I want the roof line to be that comes to the center of that window, and I put a mark on the wood because I want to come back here and measure for the height of the center point of that wall. And I'm just using the rows of bricks here. There's a row of brick that ends exactly where those side walls there end. So I'm measuring from that line up to the piece of wood to get me the height of where the center of my peak of the roof will be. Then I know how to go back and how to add that much length onto the width of the support pieces that I have to get the peak exactly where I want it to be. And of course it'll be in the center of the wall. So I know where that's at, but just getting the height here. And then coming back and we'll mark all those. You see all the lengths cut there. I have a length of piece that I've figured out how wide the piece will be, and I know the height of the piece. So I'm coming back here and just marking the angles in place from the edges of where they'll be, and coming back and just once again scribing that plastic the way I did all my other pieces. And then when we get it all scribed, we'll come back and just gently bend the plastic till it snaps and breaks out of place here, and we have a piece to work with. I like snapping these out. They normally get a nice clean edge to them, and it's just something good to work with.
And here I'm just coming back and cutting some lengths. I cut a good square end, and I just measure inside the building and get my lengths for all these side pieces. And then the end pieces, what I'll do is I'll come back and mark it, but then remember you got to take the width of those two other pieces off that length. So I just use a couple of small pieces side by side and come back and mark the width of those two side pieces off that length, and then I know I have a true dimension. Now once I come back, I can always sand these a little if they're a little tight in there, and get them so where they'll slide in and out of the assembly. But it shouldn't be a problem. Once I glue all these together, it should work out okay. So I'm just going to roll with that at this point and get all these pieces cut out. Here you see me starting to glue the frame together and get all these pieces in using my square. Once again, I want the walls are square, so I want this frame to be able to be removable, so I want it to be nice and square as well. So just getting everything all glued in. At the other end we have one of these angle brace pieces where the roof line meets. So I'm getting one of those glued into place, just cleaning the paint off the back of it. Remember, this was a sign and it has inks and stuff where the letters were painted on the sign, so make sure you clean that stuff off so you get a good bond between the plastics when you glue joints. And here you see the basic frames put together and the three more pieces for the roof that I'll have to add into there. The piece for the tower, I just duplicated the same process, putting the pieces inside the tower and scribing and marking them and cutting all four pieces out. So the tower substructure is done as well, and we have a few more braces to add into the end of this other piece here. So I'm coming back with a cheaper for sale sign. It's a little thinner plastic, but I can use that once the substructure's together to put the other roof parts on. So I measured the length, and I'm going to cut out the two sides of the roof that go on this substructure. I made them just a little bit wide and a little bit long, because once they're on the substructure I want to put it on the building and actually cut it down to place. And once these are done, I turn the frame upside down, and I need to cut out those two angles where the flat roof on that very end piece come up and meet in the middle as the third roof piece. So here I'm finding the center line, marking it on both of them, and then I'm cutting down and cutting marking and then cutting the triangles out of that very end. Then I can glue these onto the roof. Getting good clean cuts here, and I don't have to snap this plastic because it is a lot thinner, so a couple of knife blade cuts and it cuts really nice and clean. So once I turn this over, you can see the for sale signs, the glue, the paint and stuff for the words on the back side. Now the glue doesn't really adhere to this real well, so here I'm just marking the areas that the frame actually sets on those words, and I'm going to come back and clean off that paint because I want a good adhesion from the plastic to the subframe. So here I just use this little pen knife that I have, seems to do the work better than anything else, and I just come back and scrape all the glue off of those areas where the frame is going to make contact with the plastic, so I get good glue adhesion between the two. And here you can see all those areas have been cleaned off. So I'm going to come back and glue the frame, starting with one side and then working with the other. That way I can lay that angle area down flat on the frame and get a good adhesion to the plastic from that. So I'm just doing one side here and letting it set up for a little while, then I'll come back and do the second side. And here I'm using the Tamiya glue. Throughout this building I'm using the few different glues that I showed in a previous video on these plastics. I'm trying to get a good feeling for maybe what's a little better of a glue for certain situations than others. You'll see me use several different glues on this building. And here just coming back and gluing the second part onto that building. And I do put some weights on these and let them set up for a little while before proceeding with the next one. You didn't really see that in the shot, but it's good to let it cure for a while before you go playing with the next piece. So while that's curing, I'm coming back with the tower frame, and I'm putting these pieces of cross bracing in the tower piece. And here you can see I started with the one piece, and I'm coming back and adding a second piece in the third side, and I'm not going to show it, but there's a fourth piece on the opposite side of this piece that all meet in the very middle. I did have to mark the middle and clean off the glue on, or the paint on this centerpiece too, because it's centerpiece glued into a area where there was paint on that sign. And then coming back and putting this cap piece on top of that, which makes it all nice and secure, but it gives me a place to glue a center post onto that roof. And with that, I'm just going to let everything set up here for a couple of seconds and really cure really well. I work a little fast, and sometimes I don't give things the time they really need to cure as well as they should. So anyway, what I'm going to do is for that square post in the middle of that plate that holds up the center of the big roof, I don't have any heavy square stock. So what I'm going to do is just take some scrap pieces here of that thick plastic I've been using for the subframes, and I'm going to glue 3 of them together here to make the center post. And I just cut them, measure the 3 together, cut up the width, and glue them together after clean the paint off and make the stem. And here I'm just going to place all the parts to this point once they've cured in the building, and make sure that the fitting is right and that I'm not doing something that I need to go back and undo. Here you can see the first building. It's the pieces are a little wide. We're going to have to cut those down, but it fits in there nice and secure. This frame for the tower building as well fits down in there really nice. We're going to end up putting stops underneath of it later on. Here you can see the square post. It's been set up, so we're going to have to come back and glue that on. But one thing, remember I mentioned that I made these roof pieces just a little big, and the reason I did that is I wanted to put the roof in place and figure out exactly where the gutter line was. So here I'm coming back and marking those pieces and then measuring the other end, and I'm going to come back and draw a line here and then come back and cut these off so that the edge of the roof is exactly where I want it to be. And since these are angles and this thin plastic is really thin, I don't want to mess up the glue joints, so I'm kind of bracing it on this piece of wood at a proper angle here so I can get a good clean cut and cut these back to where they need to be. And I'm going to do the same thing with both sides and just get a nice clean cut on them. When I did break this off, there was a little bit of I don't know, just not a rough area, and just a couple of places, so I did come back and file these down just a little bit once I got them both cut. But here, once it's in place, you can see the gutter and how these roof lines just bring the water right down to that gutter line. It's peak is in the window just exactly the way it should be. The end points out here are nice. They're not perfect, but they'll work for what I want to do. So I'm going to come back and fill in this end piece. So I'm coming here and marking the width of where it's at. Then I come back and measure where the peak would be in the center of that piece of plastic. And then come back and mark it on the plastic as well. And then from there, I know where the angle lines will be, because they'll be from the center point up there at the width down to the outer lines of where the width mark was on the edge of the plastic that I put on there. So I'm going to mark these and kind of eyeball it just to make sure it's the right width, but I know that it is. And then we'll come back and cut the triangle out and put it into place and make sure everything's going to fit really good before we glue anything down. And here you can see, once I slide it into place, that actually it's a really good fit. The ends come down and meet the side places. There's not really any gaps between the different plastics. I did come back here and glue it on, and this is the end result. You can see I put the paint side up. I should have probably cleaned the edges and put that down, because we've got standing seam roofs that do go on glue to the top of this later for the metal appearance of the metal roofing. But now I'll just put something on that to glue it down, and here I'm going to find the center point of that plate for the tower roof that I put on. And that center piece we're going to come back and put in. I cut it down to length and cut some 45s on the top, and I'm going to square it off against the corners. And then also, once I glue it down, I want to make sure it's straight up and down from the roof, so that all the side pieces that I cut, these angle pieces here, will work out just right for going down. And I just held plastic up against this and did cuts until I got one right, and came back and cut all 4 to match that piece. And then came back and glued them into place. And here you can see the substructure for the tower roof at this point is all together then. This should give good support. If with real thin plastic, you could put another piece of angle from the center of these posts down to support the roof, but I think this will do an okay job. So, and here's all those pieces in place the way they are at this point. I think they're going to work out really well. I'm really pleased with the lower roof and how the gutter lines worked out on that piece. I think once we start painting and doing the metal edge roofs and everything, I think it's going to look really nice.
So there you have another installment of the Beanery building. I'm really pleased with the way this is coming along. Everything is working okay. It's nice to get some of those roofs on. It makes it look a little bit more like a building. I really wanted to go a little further with this video, but we're already getting into the kind of time length I like to keep these videos at. So I'm going to call it quits for this video at this point. The next one will continue on with some of the roofs and work on some of that cornice work that I was hoping to get to in this video around the tower building. There's some unique things that we haven't touched base on how to do on some things on that, so we'll get into some of that. I want to wish everybody a very happy holiday season. Spend some time with your families. Enjoy the season. We're very blessed with our lives and what we have. I know sometimes things are hard. This has been a hard year for me, but still I look back and think about how much worse it could have been. Some people's lives put your life a little more in perspective. We all have some things we can be thankful for, and I'm very thankful for the things that I have, and enjoy doing things like this. Not everybody gets to play with their toys and do the things they want to do in life. So it's nice to get back to all that. So in any case, like and share these videos. Share them with friends that you have in the model railroading club or people that do this for fun. I appreciate everybody watching my videos. Subscribe to the channel. There's a little button, red button down underneath this video if you're on YouTube that shows to go ahead and subscribe. It's a free service, and you'll be notified when the next videos come out on this Beanery build, as well as other videos that I'm going to be doing. So once again, happy holidays and happy model railroading.